Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Nicole, and on today's show, we're talking about the power of music for children and how music therapy specifically can help kids with a wide range of challenges. I've always loved music, probably partly because I did classical piano training for 12 years while growing up, and music's had a significant impact on me over the course of my life. I first got to experience the benefits of music therapy when I was teaching students with autism about 25 years ago. I was lucky enough to have a piano in my classroom, and I would play and sing with the kids throughout the day. And then we started attending formal music therapy sessions every month, and the benefits in regulation, stress reduction, communication, and lots of other areas was really profound. So whether you've explored the benefits of music or music therapy for your children or not, I think you're going to love this conversation with award-winning recording artist and music therapist Ryan Judd. Let me tell you a bit about him. He lives in Exeter, New Hampshire with his wife and their two young boys. He's an internationally known music therapist, Billboard chart-topping recording artist, and childlike yoga and mindfulness instructor. Ryan has a master's degree in music therapy and counseling psychology and has a private practice in music therapy. His two albums of research-based sleep music for children are the top-selling sleep CDs for kids on Amazon and have both won the Parents' Choice Award. Ryan's soothing instrumental music has reached the top 10 of Billboard charts and is featured on SiriusXM's Spa channel. By the way, one of my favorite channels in my car. His recordings bring together his skills as a music therapist and accomplished fingerstyle guitarist and have been streamed more than 250 million times. Ryan's committed to making music and meditations to improve the well-being of others. Welcome to the show, Ryan. So great to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
So I'm guessing, based on all of your accolades and all the things you've done in your career, that music has always been a pretty big part of your life. But I'm curious to sort of hear the story of the role that music played, maybe even when you were younger, and what specifically led you to a career in the realm of music.
Yeah, I was actually a late bloomer, and there wasn't much music in the house. There wasn't even that much music played in the house, which is really interesting.
Wow.
So, but in high school, you have the friend with the dusty old guitar in the corner, you noodle around, and you go to college, and there's little guitars here and there. But then in college, I was doing my undergraduate in psychology, and I discovered this genre of guitar, this instrumental fingerstyle work, and I just fell in love with it. And it was one of those pivotal moments in life where it just feels like a door has opened within your soul, and with every cell of your being that you found something that's going to define your future. So I knew I was a late bloomer, so I started taking lessons, started practicing like 3-4 hours a day. I took it very seriously. And graduated with undergrad in psychology. And then I was thinking, okay, I've got an undergrad in psych. I'd love to do something more. So I started looking at graduate programs. And that's when I was getting really interested in the Eastern arts as well. And I found this amazing school in Boulder, Colorado, of course. It was
Right.
founded by a Buddhist monk, of course. And it was called Naropa University. And they had this master's in music therapy and psychology, counseling psychology program. And to combine my love of working with children, because that was always my jam. Working with kids, I always work with kids as long as I can remember. It was always just a gift I had to connect with children and make them laugh, particularly. So I just combined that with my love of music and my interest in Eastern arts and philosophy and meditation and mindfulness. So it was a no-brainer to go to Naropa and study music therapy and counseling psychology.
What an amazing thing to stumble upon a program that like combined those loves together that lets you get a degree in those things. I think that's really like it clearly was meant to be, and you were meant to be on that path. You mentioned that you've always loved kids and were good with kids. Did you sort of know from early on that you would do something in your life related to working with children?
Yeah, I would say I probably knew maybe when I was getting into my early teens or something,
Mhm.
when I really started working. Yeah, of course, I did the babysitting thing, but then I started doing more like camp counselor stuff.
Mhm.
And then you start to hear from people and parents, and you start getting praised, and it's like, oh, okay, and it's just so natural, I mean, you can't really fake it. So,
Especially
um,
not with kids.
no, no, they smell that from a mile away. So yeah, it just was something that always came naturally to me, and it's such a joy. I mean, I love working with kids. It lets me be a kid. It lets me be silly and goofy and humorous, and I laugh out loud. And and being a music therapist, come on, like if I'm having a bad day, Dr. Nicole, and I go into a session, my day turns around because
Mhm.
I'm connecting with this beautiful person and I'm helping them with their goals and I'm singing and playing instruments and it's releasing all that oxytocin and all those feel good hormones. I mean, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's great for us and for the kids, right?
For sure.
You raised something there that's sort of where I wanted to go next with this, which is the benefits of music for people in general, which I think, sort of intuitively we know, like you just mentioned, like for having a bad day, and we sort of know, like, oh, there's that song that we can turn on, or we get in the car and we turn the radio on, and it can sort of just turn our mood around or soothe us or help us to feel better. So I think intuitively we sort of get it, but I'd love to have you talk about why music is important and helpful to us. And then I want to get into what music therapy is specifically. But let's talk about just the overall benefits of music first. Why should we have music in our life?
Imagine life without music.
Yeah.
Wow, that'd be gray. So, music, you can use it for so many things, and there's all the neuroscience behind it. And that's what's really beautiful about the field of music therapy right now. Neurological music therapy is really growing, and they're doing all these amazing neuroscan studies now with people engaged in music and they're seeing all those feel good hormones being released especially when they're engaged in making music. So but from a more passive listening, you also get some benefits, and I feel like there's music that can elevate your central nervous system. I mean, like when I work out, I
Yeah.
do like an online workout program, but I also have Spotify going at the same time, right? And I've got the like more pump in music because it makes a difference.
Yeah.
It helps invigorate and energize my central nervous system. And when I'm focused and I'm like, oh, I got to get through some emails and oh my God, I got a spreadsheet to deal with, and you put on like that more like focused music, which for me is, and depends person to person, there's subjective elements to it, but that helps me enjoy it more and be more focused. And when I'm relaxed and when, for me too, here's a story I'll share. When I was in high school, growing up, young boy in the 80s, men weren't that encouraged to be emotive.
Mhm.
And so for me, the only way for my heart to open up and to have the tears fall was if there was sad music playing. And so that was one of my first seeds of awareness around the power of music, is because it opened up my heart and let me have that catharsis, and it still does to this day. So whether it's for that or energizing you or making a boring task like emptying the dishwasher better, because us parents, laundry and dishes, right, nonstop. So
Never ending.
add some music,
Yeah.
parents, please. It'll make it more enjoyable. So for all those reasons and many more, music is a beautiful thing in our lives.
It is, and we don't often consider how it helps us to regulate and shift our nervous system, our mood, just our sense of being. But I think, I love that you shared that personal story, because we can all think of a time in our lives, a similar experience, like, the breakup in middle school or high school or even college, where you just listen to the same song or couple of songs on repeat. Like, we might think, oh, there wasn't a lot of purpose behind it, but actually there is. And to your point about the studies coming out now of looking at things like fMRI imaging and understanding more of why we might play the same song or track of songs over and over, in certain situations, why it is that we can shift our mood state or get more energized or soothe ourselves. And I think just intuitively, humans have been doing that throughout time. And now we just understand more of the science behind why. But I think that's just so important to understand, even as you said, like in the basic everyday tasks, it can shift things and just make things more fun or help us get through them. Like spreadsheets, the bane of my existence. Like if I can have some decent music on while I'm doing that, right? So talk about then music therapy, because people, I think in general, they go, okay, yeah, I get it. Like music's helpful. Or some people will say to me, well, yeah, my kid likes music.
Yeah.
Or some people will say, oh, my kid's not really that into music. So let's talk about why music therapy developed as a discipline and what we're really talking about when we say that, somebody, a child or an adult might participate in music therapy. What are those sessions like? What's happening there?
Yeah, so I invite you to imagine a school setting where a young boy with autism who's nonverbal is being led into a classroom. And there I am sitting with my guitar with a couple other kids around me. And the teacher leads this young boy up to the circle. This boy seems anxious, seems dysregulated, isn't quite sure what's happening and what's going on. It's something new and different, unsettling perhaps. But the teacher leads him up and he takes a seat, and I slowly start strumming my guitar, singing a little greeting song, a little hello song. And he looks at that guitar and seems very curious, so I hold the guitar out to him, and while I'm singing and moving my left hand to make the chords, he starts strumming the strings. And I use his name and I personalize and I start singing directly to him. And then I pull back and we take turns greeting, whether a child is using an augmentative alternative device to say hello or waving or saying hello. We take turns greeting and greeting our peers and saying hi. And this child starts to nervously make a little bit of eye contact, a little bit of connection with his peers. And then we hand out some egg shakers. And he starts shaking the shaker and he's starting to get into it. You can see he's starting to warm up, starting to make more contact. His body starts to move a little bit. We all practice our greetings, and then the song ends and he puts the shaker down and he signs more. Can you picture that, Doctor?
I can. It brings me back actually to that very first classroom of mine for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think on a sensory level, let's
Yeah.
talk about
Yeah.
sensory level, because I know you're a huge proponent of that too. And some of my best training has come with my collaboration with occupational and physical therapists.
Yeah.
So let's think about that child shaking the shaker.
Mm-hmm.
On a sensory level, what's being engaged? Oh my gosh, tactile. They're feeling the shaker. Kinesthetic. They're moving. Their auditory cortex is firing. Their motor cortex is firing. Their brain is processing the music and the movement simultaneously in multiple areas, both left and right hemisphere. At the same time, it's one of the most unique stimuli that exists that can do that. So on a sensory level, and the rhythm, the cool thing is what the research is showing, it's more about the rhythm than the melody, right? They say that there's a cool saying that, what is it? Melody is king, but rhythm rules.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So rhythm trumps melody. And so that's so much when we're talking about using music throughout our day. It's so much of the rhythm. Sure, we have a association with the melody and the lyrics, but so much of it is the rhythm. So it's the rhythm that the central nervous system can connect to, and the rhythm can help shape and guide the central nervous system.
So true. And I'm so glad you're talking about that, because it's one of the things before I even knew anything about this and just intuitively was working with kids, because a lot of listeners know my story, but my first teaching job was with young autistic children. I didn't know anything about, I didn't know, nobody really knew much about autism at the time. It was like the mid 90s and they were like, here, do this, you'll be good at it. Okay. So I didn't really know any of the why behind any of it, but I intuitively knew, and the rhythm was such a big piece. I would have these like, just really like these 5 kids who were off in their own places and dysregulated, even struggling to regulate their body movements. And yet when I could create these rhythmic patterns through music, or even rhythm through, like you said, with the shakers or the tambourine, or even walking and stomping and movement along with the music, that rhythm was so regulating for them. It would just ground their bodies, then their brains would engage. And that was so fascinating to me. I mean, now I look back and I'm like, well, of course, because I understand all the why behind it. But at the time, I just intuitively knew that it was helpful. And I think that's such an overlooked and under leveraged tool for kids in school and at home. That idea of using rhythm and using music to help regulate those systems, because it doesn't take a long time. It's really pretty powerful to watch it happen.
For sure. Yeah, and there's a lot of things that parents can do at home with music.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I feel like just to be a little more intentional about it
Mhm.
for ourselves
Mhm.
and for parents. I mean, for ourselves, I feel like you have this like sonic medicinal cabinet, this sonic like medicine cabinet, and you open it up and you say, okay, what do I need? Do I need some music to get me motivated and going? Do I need some music to pull my heartstrings? Do I need some music to calm and relax me? Do I just need some music to distract me? Like,
Mhm.
and I feel like if we're just a little more intentional about creating playlists or knowing that go-to song or album, and we just bring in that music more often, it can be really helpful. And for parents with kids with special needs or kids who are neurotypical at home, there's so much
Mhm.
you can do.
Yeah. I want to get more into that. That reminds me of several things that I wanted to talk about. But I love the picture that you painted of what music therapy can look like. You painted this beautiful image of it in a classroom setting or in a therapy environment. Music therapy can be done one-on-one, can be done in group settings. There's lots of ways it can look, but the goal is really to work on whatever for that group of kids or adults or that individual person is needing, whether it's communication or sensory work or building relationship, whatever, that you use the music and the movement as a vehicle for that, right?
For sure. And I'm glad you mentioned the relationship because that's another part about music therapy that's wonderful. The foundation of all my music therapy work is the therapeutic relationship, the
Right.
trust, the bond that I have with the child. Because I mean you're asking this child to do something that's very can be very uncomfortable,
Mm-hmm.
like that they struggle with, that
Yeah.
they're struggling to, string words together or do a bunch of signs or use this or whatever it may be, a gross motor skill, a fine motor skill, a social skill. It's challenging. And so to push them without having that foundation of trust, good
Mm-hmm.
luck.
Yeah.
It's not going to go well. um, but the music, you know what it's like. You're a musician. You know what it's like when the kids are playing along with you and you're all joined together. And that's where you get that oxytocin release, that
Mm-hmm.
bonding hormone. How beautiful is that? It comes through interacting musically. So I'm so lucky because I know that a lot of my clients have challenges, more challenges outside, and present more challenges outside of the session. But when they come in, I rarely have to do any like
Mm-hmm.
behavioral management stuff,
Yep.
because they're happy to be there. We have that bond that we've created through the music with that respect. I follow their lead. I'm not really pushing them. I meet them where they're at, and then I guide them. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
not gonna just like
Yep.
smack up against them where they're not. If they come in very, energetic, I'm not going to go into some like,
No.
just relax. That's not going to work.
Right.
I can kind of join them a little bit in that energy and then slowly kind of
Mhm.
bring it down.
Yeah.
That can be golden.
Yeah, and it's just such a beautiful model for really how we should be engaging with and guiding these kids across the board, right? Like I'll never forget. So back when I was in that classroom and we got some funding to start going to these formal music therapy sessions that happened in the county. All of us who taught in these classrooms would come together at one central location and have these formal music therapy sessions. And I'll never forget, like I thought it was magical. I thought it was great. And they happened on a farm. And so it was like so cool. Like, I can take the kids around with the animals. And I know like all the other teachers, like they were much more seasoned than me. They're looking at me like I'm crazy because I was like really into it with the kids, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember one of the teachers from another district saying to me, she said, well, they only behave like this in here because they get to do what they want to do. This doesn't carry over. Like she was very cynical about it.
Yeah.
And I remember like looking at her and thinking, but why aren't we? Why can't we do these things? Why does the definition of like what we're doing in these programs and in these school classrooms mean that we can't meet them where we're at, or that where they're at, or that we can't match their level of energy, or that we can't operate in the same way? Like just this idea that, well, that's just something that happens during music therapy time. That's not really, the rest of the time. And I just sort of think like how sad that we don't look at that as, oh, here's a model for really how we could be engaging and relating and supporting and communicating all throughout the day.
For sure. For sure. And then sometimes it doesn't take that much.
Mhm.
And a lot of times the music therapist can really set people up for success because,
Yeah.
hey, if a child, what they learn in my music therapy sessions is not generalized outside the music therapy session, like, kind of what's the point? You
Yeah.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun. Okay, we're having a good time. But, they need to translate those skills outside. So a lot of it can be those consultations with parents and with other teachers and in team meetings and saying
Mhm.
what's working. A lot of it, since most kids now have like a tablet or an iPad or something, can be recording videos of yourself singing songs about taking deep breaths or singing a greeting song or a social skills song, and on and on and on. And they can have a library on their iPad, and hey, the
Mhm.
parent knows exactly where to go to find that.
Yeah.
So there's so many things you can do to help generalize it outside the session.
Yeah, amazing. That's so true. And you're right. Like technology allows us to do that now in ways that we didn't used to be able to. And I always, it's bringing back a memory too of two kids that I worked with who were non-speaking,
Mhm.
but when I would get them I would play, like we had sort of a rotation of songs. I would do a lot of repetition with many of them. The kids had their favorites. And what amazed me over time is those kids who were non-speaking would sing with the music. So they were vocal and verbal, like singing with the music. Now they weren't able because of their apraxia and some of their oral motor issues, just in general speaking, and like, but they would sing the lyrics totally clearly when there was music and rhythm and relationship added to it. And just like, boy, if that's not something amazing to think about with how the brain works, right?
Beautiful. Music speaks where words fail, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's another wonderful thing about music therapy is the child can be self-expressive. They can
Mhm.
make music. They can use their voice
Mhm.
appropriately and in a welcome way
Mhm.
without having to get that challenging articulation which some
Yeah,
of them struggle with, you know?
right.
So
Yeah.
it's just a really amazing, beautiful way for these kids to express themselves and join in and use their voices and like I have one client too who loves proprioceptive
Yeah,
feedback.
that's
You
right.
hear her coming down the hall because she's
Yep.
slapping the wall.
Right. Stomping the feet. Yep.
Exactly. So she comes into the session. What's the instrument I give to her? The drum, the hand
Yep.
drum, and so she can appropriately and expressively, in a way that's welcome,
Mhm.
smack that drum and get all that feedback that she's craving.
Mhm.
And it helps her after the session. Then, I hear from
Absolutely.
the parents and the teachers, oh my gosh, I wish you could be here to start every day.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. We've been talking quite a bit about maybe kids with more significant sensory processing impairment, kids with autism, but I don't want to overlook the fact, or I want to make sure that we spotlight for people music therapy and using music in this way is appropriate for such a broad range of issues and needs, right? I mean, let's talk about some of that. Like we're talking about even kids with ADHD, kids with learning challenges, kids with anxiety, or, all of those things, right?
You can teach so much through music. Yeah, I mean, I have one of my boys has ADHD and anxiety, so I totally get it. And that's why I started going more into some different realms with my music and my music therapy. And that's why I started also working in the meditation, the mindfulness to my work and doing that childlike yoga. It was this amazing workshop, this childlike yoga and mindfulness for diverse abilities.
Yeah.
And I had to start using this with my clients. And then it just kind of, I started using it more with my own kids and it started working beautifully. So there's so much more you can do. And I feel like being a parent with a newborn, being and realizing the insanity of the
Uh-huh.
lack of sleep, that's what prompted me to create those sleep CDs, those sleep albums,
Yeah.
big albums, because I just realized how crazy it was. So, I'm one of those guys that, when I am faced with a challenge myself, whether it's my son having ADHD and anxiety or
Mhm.
the insanity of lack of sleep, the parents, I try to use my unique skill set to do something about it.
Mhm. Oh, I love it. You mentioned a few minutes ago, that as parents, we can benefit from this by using music, having playlists in different ways to regulate our nervous systems. And that made me think of when I was doing parent groups and doing a lot more direct clinical work with parents. Um, I would often have them choose a theme song or make a playlist of music, especially the ones that would get really discouraged or really frustrated with
Mm.
their kids. Their nervous systems would get activated very quickly when their child was maybe, resistive, or their child was getting dysregulated. And so I'd have them pick a theme song that would sort of pick them up and carry them and, help them just to feel more optimistic.
Yep.
But also, have some tracks in their playlist that were soothing for them, that if the things were really falling apart, they could put their headphones in, listen to that, settle their nervous system. It's a really powerful tool for us as the adults in the situation too. I think it can be used by teachers, parents, like anybody.
So easy these days. And the morning time,
Yeah.
morning times are crazy, night
Yeah.
times are crazy, weekends are crazy. So morning time, I almost always have some very chill, relaxing music
Nice.
playing before the kids even come down into the kitchen,
Mm.
right? And I'm not saying that that makes all the mornings all mellow and
Right.
peaceful,
Right.
but it helps. And I tell you, when there's a frustrating event that passes and there's a moment of silence and all of a sudden that music comes through,
Mhm.
it's this reorienting, recentering point. It's that whisper in your ear that says, come back to your center, take a
Mm.
deep breath. And I've learned what kinds of music my kids like
Yeah.
and that I like. So they don't like so much my music. They call it sappy. Daddy, your music's too sappy.
That's right. Dad music.
And because I'm always like, Alexa, turn on Ryan Judd or something. And then, my boys are like, Alexa, turn off. But if I put on some chill hop,
Yeah,
which
right.
so you're familiar with chill hop,
My
right?
kids introduced me to that, and I love those
Yeah.
playlists now.
Good stuff because
Yeah.
it's almost exclusively instrumental. If
Yep.
there's vocals, they're usually just vocalizations. So there's
Hmm.
nothing inappropriate. Yet it's got that cool hip
Yep.
hop beat and
Yep.
hip hop feel. Yet it's all between 60 beats per minute and 90 beats per minute, which
Hmm.
is that tempo that the research shows
Yep.
elicits the relaxation response. So
Mhm.
having music on in the background and then the getting your kids dressed, right? I was getting so frustrated a couple weeks ago, and then I'm like, come on, man. Alexa, play a get dressed song for kids.
Uh-huh.
And bam, this awesome song by this band, like pop band, comes on, and all of a sudden the kids are just like, oh, doing it. And some mornings they don't want the music, and I respect that.
Yep.
But it's always a nice choice to have. And a
Mhm.
lot of times, what I'll do too, and I encourage parents to do this, putting on one thing that's been driving me crazy is putting on the sunscreen, right? I'm so glad that we're moving to fall. I can
Yes.
be like done with sunscreen because I'm going to lose my mind with the sunscreen thing. But I just make up a song,
Yeah.
right? Take a simple, familiar melody. We're not talking about symphonic composition here. We're talking about taking like Twinkle Twinkle
Yeah.
or Row 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 Your Boat or Old MacDonald Had a Farm and, putting on the sunscreen nice and slow. Putting on the sunscreen, here we go. A little on your neck, hold on tight, and I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just riffing right now.
Making
I'm
it
just
up.
making
Yeah.
it doesn't even need to rhyme. It's fun to try to rhyme, but it
Hmm.
doesn't. So I just encourage parents for your own sanity and your child's, try to add some music into
Hmm.
some of those activities that might be a little frustrating, that they might be a little fidgety and resistant to.
Yeah, or that get you activated in a way that is unhelpful, and we can be proactive about that because we know when those situations are coming, right? Like I'm thinking sort of what I call the witching hour for families right before dinner, right? And it's like everybody's going nuts and you're trying to get dinner on the table. And so I often say to people, like, have a playlist, put some music in the background that just provides some regulation and just keeps things a little more chill. What I love about all of this, it's so easy to access. It's free, whether you have subscriptions to things or not, and most of us do, but you can get this stuff out there, and it's not going to harm anything. And why not try it? Because it can just have such a nice regulating effect. And the making up songs, what I always found, my kids are older now, but when they were little, the only problem I would run into with that is then if they were like, mommy, sing that song again about, the tying shoes or whatever. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I say? Like, what were the lyrics, right? So then I'm like, oh, let me try to remember how I put that song together. But I think, one of the things I want to touch on there and just have you encourage parents around, because sometimes they'll say, well, I can't sing or I'm not musical. You actually don't have to have talent to be able to do this. Kids actually don't care.
They don't care. That's what the research shows. They do not care about your tone of your voice and how on pitch it is. So, and rhythm stuff can be fun too. Again, going back to the melody's king, but rhythm rules. So it could be if you're really like not feeling like singing, although that's good for you because it's going to release those feel good hormones. So, but if you really want to just do something rhythmic, putting on the sunscreen, 1, 2, 3. Putting on the sunscreen, you and me, and just kind of almost like rap it,
yeah,
sing it.
yes.
So that's an option too.
Yeah, I want to touch on, you said when you were talking about that you'll put on different music at different times for your kids, but you said if they don't want it on, you respect that. Let's touch on that a minute, because I think there might be some parents listening who are like, okay, this all sounds great, but my kid is really sensitive, to certain sounds, or sometimes I'll have music on and it seems to bother them or they want it off. What do you say to parents around, like, because I think sometimes parents shut down to that then and they're like, oh, my kid, like music isn't for my kid, or I'm not going to play it at all. Or they try to force the issue, at the other extreme. Can you just talk a little bit about how to balance that?
Yeah, well, you got to respect. I feel like you really got to respect that. If a child's saying turn off, and you're saying no, I'm going to keep playing it, I feel like you're just creating a negative association with music, right? So we don't want to do that. So let's not go there. But I feel like just keep trying different styles of music, keep trying different songs. Just like you and me, if I put on 20 songs, you might like one or two.
Yeah.
Right? And some of them you'd be like, oh my God, turn it off. I don't want to hear that. So you got to keep trying, try different genres, try Latin jazz and try new age instrumental music and try chill hop and hey, let's try some nature sounds.
Yeah.
Like just having some soothing like ocean waves or rain sounds in the background, let Mother Nature be the musician. That could be cool too. But I do think it's important to follow your child's lead and to respect if they say no. And it's this benign thing that they can have control over. If it's a little bit of a power struggle and they say, turn off the music, okay, that's fine, go ahead. And you're giving them like, oh, I just won one. I just got to control something. So then they don't have to control something that is going to be more important for them to really do or follow through with. You know what I'm saying?
That's such a great point. And I think the other piece is sometimes the trial and error is a bit about volume too. And one of the things that I've noticed, especially with kids who have a lot of auditory sensitivity, sometimes we can play music or sounds at an almost imperceptible level where we're like, I'm not sure that we can even really hear that, but they do. And so even just to like experiment with volume or distance from the speaker, in the car, sometimes that's an issue. Parents say, well, I've got this one kid who wants to, listen to it, and this other kid who's like, turn it off, like my ears can't take it. And so headphones can be helpful there, but also just playing with the volume of it. Like sometimes what we think is a comfortable listening volume, a child with some sensitivities, it may not be the music they're objecting to or the sound, it may be the volume. So just playing around with those things, right?
Another thing that they can control.
Yeah.
Let them go up to the little speaker or
Right.
whatever your device is, if you
Mhm.
know, if you're not driving,
Yeah. Right.
and let them
Yeah.
control the volume there, to have them dial it in so it's just right. So I think that's really important too. So
Mhm.
that's a really great point. And I feel like as parents, I know like my hearing loss since
Right.
I had a baby has gone
Totally.
downhill from all the screaming and no two people talking to me at the same time. Oh my gosh. So,
Mhm.
I would definitely assume that biologically our children have much better hearing than we
Yeah,
do.
yeah. What's comfortable for them may be very different than our experience of that for sure. But I love the idea of just like respecting where they're at and letting them have some control over it. I think there's such therapeutic benefit in that. Um, you've provided, some great tips and strategies for using this at home. I know that you incorporate things like breathing and meditation and mindfulness in with the music too, which is just a lovely marriage of those things. We've had other episodes where we've talked about things like breath work and meditation and mindfulness, sort of in isolation and sometimes with the music too. But you've got a really beautiful way of bringing that together for kids. And I wonder if you would do all of us, give us all the pleasure of hearing, like just having you take us through an experience of you playing music and incorporating maybe some breathing or some mindfulness into it.
Yeah, let's do one that's more geared towards my clients. I wrote a song for a particular client. He's amazing. He has autism and he's blind and he has perfect pitch.
Mm.
And so I play a note while I'm tuning my guitar. He's telling me what I'm playing.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful. I can play any note and he knows what it is just by hearing it. So cool. Just a super sweet, awesome dude. But he's got a lot of anxiety,
Yeah.
especially when things are unexpected,
Right.
certain sensitivities to wind.
Mhm.
And so I customize these songs for him and I incorporate them. And we have one called Low and Slow because I think when
Mm.
you're working on breath work yourself or with a child, it's got to be low and slow. It's got you breathing low into the belly. So
Mhm.
that's where I think it's really fun to use things like a Hoberman sphere to help a
Uh-huh.
child know that their belly, when they inhale
Uh-huh. Yeah.
and exhale, or have a little lovey or a little stuffy on their belly at night when you're practicing this, and have them rise up the little stuffy with an inhale and the stuffy goes down a little bit with the exhale. So Low and Slow is a song I wrote for him, and I'll play a little bit of it for you. There's many verses because what I do is there's kind of the main part, the low and slow part, but then there's the verse where I can customize it and
Sure.
tailor it to that specific triggering event or
Mhm.
triggering anxiety.
Mhm.
But this is kind of a fun one. And there's breathing within it.
Yeah.
So I encourage everyone to breathe along with the music too.
Awesome.
All right. Low and slow is the way to go. 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 And if you're feeling nervous, worried, or anxious too, here's what you can do. Keep your breath. Low and slow is the way to go.
Oh, beautiful. Oh,
It's fun, right?
awesome.
I mean, it's cool because you're teaching the cognitive behavioral strategy of
Right.
taking the deep breath during, when you're feeling anxious, but you're practicing it with the music. So,
Mhm.
and I feel like the music can give it that, again, the rhythm, the rhythmic
Yeah.
pace of, oh, it's slow. We're not doing a,
Yeah.
it's this nice slow breath.
Mhm.
So that's just, I've got a bunch of those different songs, but that's kind of one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and it's one that just applies to all of us as humans in today's world, right? Like that's going to stick with everybody listening. I guarantee you there's going to be moms, dads, teachers replaying that little snippet over and over. Just beautiful and so simple, but so effective. I think you've done a great job of convincing people of the power of music and the importance of including this in our day-to-day lives, using this to support ourselves and our kids. I'm curious, a couple things. I want you to share with people where they can find out more about your work, your songs, but also if people are thinking, I think my kid could really benefit from some music therapy. It's not something that's offered in their school. I'd like to seek out a resource. Is there a resource for people to find maybe music therapists in their own community?
For sure. The American Music Therapy Association, musictherapy.org, has a Find a Therapist button, and also the CBMT, Certification Board of Music Therapists, also has a similar link. So we'll put those in the show notes for people to check out.
Awesome. And for people who are saying, I need to know more about Ryan and what he's doing, and also where do I get his music? Give us the details. It'll all be in the show notes too, but tell people where they can get more of you.
Yeah, well, I'm on all streaming platforms. So whether it's Spotify, Pandora, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, whatever, you can find me there by just looking up Ryan Judd. If you want to follow more of my music when I have new releases and I share a little bit more about my projects and my music therapy, you can go to ryanjuddmusic.com. If you want to see more of my music therapy work, I have a ton of videos of me actually working with clients because the best way to really understand is to see it. Therhythmtree.com. I have a video blog there and also a YouTube channel. So, so much. And my new project, Cool Koala, is this beautiful app that we just released of guided bedtime meditations for kids. Because as parents know, bedtime can be crazy, right?
Yes.
So these meditations are just so beautiful, and it has my sleep music going on too.
Mhm.
So we're getting amazing feedback from parents about, oh my God, nothing worked until this. This is making bedtime so much easier. My kid's falling asleep. They're not calling for me every 5 minutes after I turn the lights off. And within the meditations are beautiful themes like developing compassion and gratitude, letting go of worries, dealing with anger and frustration. So that's Cool Koala, and we're at coolkoala.co. And you can find us on Instagram, Cool Koala Bedtime, YouTube. We're about to release a bunch of awesome videos on YouTube and Instagram. So I'm really excited about that too. So I've got the three hats, right? Cool Koala, Ryan Judd Music, and Ryan Judd Musician, but they all play in the same sandbox beautifully.
Oh, I love it. And how exciting about that app. Is that available then? People can get it on like Android and Apple devices.
We just have it on Apple, and we also have it as an
Okay,
Alexa skill. So if you have
beautiful.
a Amazon Alexa speaker, you could say, "Hey Alexa, open up Cool Koala skill," and it'll start guiding you through the process. And it's really cool too for kids who have a little speaker in their room and they can listen to the meditations at bedtime.
That's great because boy, bedtime and sleep is such a challenge for so many people. So yeah, you're gonna have there's a lot of people right now who are already on their device going, let me find this and download it immediately to use starting tonight. Um, Ryan, I just am so grateful for just who you are as a person, a professional, your amazing talent, the heart that you have for all of this, and just really using your gifts with kids and sharing them with the world in this way. It's just really beautiful, so important. Thank you for the work that you're doing.
Oh, you're so very welcome, and thank you so much for having me a guest. This was so exciting when I saw that I was going to be a guest. I was just like, it was one of those arms up moments. Like, yes, I get to connect with Dr. Nicole. She's so amazing, and you have so many beautiful resources to offer parents. So it's a coming together of two like minds. I love it.
Absolutely. We could talk for hours. I think we're going to have you back and do some more music and some more things. I know that people are going to love this episode, but we appreciate you spending the time with us today. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
And thanks, as always, to all of you for being here and for listening. We'll catch you back here next time.